There are lots of perfectly legitimate fears. If your country is invaded, you have a perfect right to be afraid of anyone in a foreign uniform. If your house is broken into, you have a right to be afraid of the person who is downstairs going through your belongings. But the fear of the paranormal makes no sense whatsoever. We are slightly afraid of anything unknown, and that's natural. But when you think about it, what is a ghost going to do to you? I can say with absolute certainty that there has never been a case in which a ghost has been proven to hurt a person. There are very few cases where any ghosts seem to show any intention of hurting anyone, but they certainly don't seem to have the capacity to do it. I know that a few ghost hunters claim to have been scratched, poked, thumped, and all that, but we have no reason to assume that even if that was paranormal, which it may have been, there was any intent to do injury. I'm certain no one has ever been seriously hurt by a ghost. But the fear of the paranormal can hurt you. You might run away in a haunted house and fall downstairs. You might run out of a haunted house and into a road and be hit by a car. So there's no sense in being frightened. The trick is to relax. Just remember that nobody has ever been killed by a ghost. Nobody ever will be. They just don't have the ability or the right to do that to us. When I go into a haunted place, I'm never afraid of the ghosts I might find there. I'm occasionally a little nervous of what people I might meet amongst the living, because the living have bodies, they can harm you if they want to. There are living people who have intention to steal from you. There are living people who will follow you home and break into your house. They'll steal your bag as you walk down the street. All these are legitimate things to fear. But no ghost has ever robbed anyone. Most ghosts don't seem to have much interest in us at all. Most of them are just pursuing their own normal behaviour. Some appear to be recordings, but I think they are the minority. I realise I'm in a minority by saying that, because there are a lot of people out there who think most of them are recordings, but most of them don't act like recordings. But you've got no more to fear from a recording type ghost than you do from a videotape. Less, in fact, because the videotape might have something embarrassing about you. The ghost is unlikely to unless you personally killed them, in which case, frankly, I don't care what happens to you, it's your own fault. But then you come to the conscious type ghosts. Now, I'm not saying for sure that all this is real. I have no evidence. I personally believe that they exist. I personally believe that I've met several of them, and I'm none the worse for the experience. But if they do exist, and let's assume for now that they do, why would they want to hurt you? What could be their intent? They need a motive, same as any other criminal. Now, you might say the ghost of a murderer may want to murder you to add you to his victims. But how's he going to do that? He doesn't have a body. He doesn't have any means of forcing you to do anything. He can't, for example, give you the suggestion to walk under a bus with the confidence that you'll do it. If ghosts could do that, then we'd all be controlled by ghosts, wouldn't we? And there's no evidence yet that we are. Then most ghosts have no history of violence. Or if they do, it's the violence that was enacted upon them. There are a few ghosts of criminals, a few ghosts of soldiers, but they're outnumbered by the number of people who just seem to have lived perfectly blameless lives and died perfectly ordinary deaths. It seems a little harsh to assume that as soon as they die they become violent and aggressive. One thing we need to bear in mind is that ghosts are not some magical monster. They're us. Only they're us without bodies. So they have all the same thoughts as us, all the same emotions as us, the same capacity for love or hate, the same capacity for fear. I have known situations where a ghost will behave as if it's afraid of us, and I see no reason to assume that it wouldn't be. Especially when people go around with Ghost Hunter emblazoned across their chest. Please don't use the word Ghost Hunter. Imagine if someone came into your house with your name across their chest and underneath the word Hunter. You'd be a little worried, wouldn't you? And then people come into your house and start screaming at you to do things and perform tricks. It's not really fair, is it? How would you react if somebody came into your living room and said to you, "Show yourself, you coward, now do something. Hurt one of us." Right? Not polite to begin with. And if a ghost slaps you because of that, then you brought it on yourself. I've never known anyone on an investigation to be threatened by a ghost. I've never known one to be violent towards anyone. I've known ghosts to touch people, but only in a way to draw their attention. I've had a hand on my leg. It did me no harm. We all like the fear of ghosts. I love an M.R. James story just as much as anyone else. I love Hammer horror stories. The Hammer films were the delight of my youth. But it doesn't mean that I believe any of it. In all my time investigating ghosts, I have met 2 malevolent ones, neither of which had any capacity to do me any harm whatsoever. In the meantime, I have met dozens that seemed either friendly or indifferent. We need to get past the idea that everything is out to get us. If you're going into a place covered with protection, you're doing essentially the daftest thing you can do. If someone walks into a building dressed in armour and coming to see you, waving a great big sword around their head, you don't assume that their intent is friendly. If someone knocks politely on the door, asks if they can come in, and then comes in dressed perfectly normally, sits down in your living room and starts talking to you like a human being, then you tend to think of them as friends, or potential friends, or at least not a psycho. So all these people who start by putting on loads of protection are just saying to the ghost, "We're looking for a fight." So the ghost will try to frighten you. And they're very good at frightening you. They can bang things, they can push you around, they can move stuff to make it look like they've got more power than they have. Always remember you're the one with the body. You have infinitely more strength than any ghost. For a start, you can speak. Ask yourself how many ghosts can make an audible voice. Why do you think we need EVPs? Because the ghosts cannot make enough of a noise to register. There may be a few that can, but they're rare, and they work hard at it, and they seem to be exhausted by it. You are making your own energy all the time by the food you eat and the sleep you have. Ghosts can't do either. Ghosts are relying on a very limited energy pool. And even if they are capable of manipulating matter, to some extent, they can't do a thing to you. Because you're this great hulking thing with a body. No offence, chaps, but you are. Compared to a ghost, you are fairly substantial. So you mustn't get worried about all this. And negative spirits do seem to feed on fear, so if you're frightened, you're feeding them anyway. So you might as well be relaxed about it. Just think of it as going into an interesting place to have an interesting experience. And don't go fittering about worrying about fear. And if you hear something that is clearly intended to frighten you, have a chuckle. Laughter does a lot to get rid of fear. If, on some investigation, you become so frightened that you cannot function as an investigator, or if you're in your own home and something happens that frightens you, just calmly leave the room. You'd be surprised how calming that can be. Apart from anything else, just controlling your movements enough to get out of the room can make you realise that you're not actually trapped, and you're not paralysed with fear. You're just having a moment of doubt. But why doubt? If, in all these thousands of years, no one has ever been killed by a ghost, what makes you think you're going to be first? Just consider how it must feel from the ghost point of view. You may be the first person who's been aware of them in the last 100 years. They may want to make contact with you. They may want to just stay out of your way. But they're more likely to be worried about the situation than you are. And especially if you look like somebody frightening, or you talk as if you're going to exorcise them or something. Anyone who does it is incredibly rude and should not be in the field. Don't throw these people out of their homes. If you get to a point where the owner of the house doesn't want the ghost there, and they're asking you to help them get rid of it, first of all try reasoning with them, because they, like you, have nothing to fear from the ghost. Secondly, if they really insist, ask the ghost politely to move somewhere else. But don't try banishing it to hell, because even if hell exists, which I don't believe it does, it's abundantly clear that most ghosts don't belong there. And imagine how you would feel if someone said to you, go to hell. You wouldn't like it, would you? It would hurt you, it would offend you, it would anger you. We've got to think of ghosts as people. If we're ever going to do anything that's going to tell us anything about ghosts. If these beings are conscious, and are just like us, except without bodies, and therefore without danger, then surely it's just common politeness to be nice to them. And niceness starts with not being afraid of them, not being hostile to them, respecting them. Because one day we're all going to be in that position. We're all going to lose our bodies. And I don't think any of us want to be in a situation where we're being attacked by people who still have bodies simply because we don't. It's a form of racism, really, and it's most offensive. So be nice to the ghosts. Assume they're going to be nice to you, and then we can all get on. And when we all get on, maybe the ghosts will cooperate more. Every group I know that gets good EVPs has a good response, has a good attitude to the ghosts. Everyone I know who gets lots of things moving around during the course of an investigation, apart from people like most who want to move them themselves, is polite to the ghosts and asks nicely. All the best investigators I know like ghosts. They treat them as people. And the people who don't are the ones who get slapped by the punch and generally terrified, but never seriously hurt. Be happy, be confident, be polite, and all shall be well.